I still can't get the smell out from under my nails. Not soap, not bleach, not scrubbing until my knuckles crack and the skin peels. It's like the stink sank past the surface and made itself at home in the meat of my hands. Rot and old iron and something sweet, the way spoiled fruit gets sweet right before it liquefies. 2 days. It's only been 2 fucking days since I walked out of that office building. And every time my room goes quiet, I swear I can hear that same sound again. Something scraping, slow and patient, like a blade being dragged along tile just to enjoy the noise it makes. If you work where I worked, if you recognize any of this, don't be brave. Don't be loyal. Don't be just one more night. Leave. I mean, pack your shit and walk out while the sun's still up and never come back. Because that place doesn't let people go. And yeah, I know how that sounds. I'm the last guy who would have believed it. I'm literally an auditor. I made a career out of not believing anything until it's documented and tied out and supported by evidence. I have evidence now. My last night, there was supposed to be boring. That's the sickest part. It was supposed to be spreadsheets and stale coffee and a couple jokes to keep us awake until we hit send and crawled home. That was it. A clean ending. My resignation letter was already in. I'd already done the fake, "I'll miss you guys" routine. My manager had already done the fake, "You'll do great wherever you go" routine. For years of grinding my teeth down to nubs for that firm. And my exit was going to be a quiet Thursday night where the only thing that died was my patience. September 2nd, 11 p.m., because of course it was. Anyone outside would have seen the 3rd floor lit up like a lonely fish tank in a dead city block. Lights buzzing behind tinted glass while the rest of the building slept. We were in one of those office towers that try to look fancy from the street. Polished stone, mirror doors, some stupid water feature in the lobby that never had water in it. Inside, it was all old carpet and dead air and the constant hum of HVAC that couldn't decide if it wanted to freeze you or suffocate you. That night, it was me and a wise. That's it. 2 dumbass left behind by everyone smarter who went home at a normal time. We were up against an audit deadline for a client who treated time like a suggestion and data like a hostage. They dumped the final trial balance on us an hour before close, and then acted offended we weren't grateful. And we were too fried to fight it. You know that sound when an office is empty? It's not silence. It's the building breathing. The occasional tick from a cooling vent, the distant thunk of plumbing, the soft electronic whine from printers sleeping in the dark. We had our laptops open, and our screens were the only real light. Blue-white rectangles cutting holes through the gloom. The fluorescent ceiling lights were on, but half of them were dim or flickering because maintenance requests in that place went to die. The other half made everything look the color of old teeth. A wise had a stack of working papers spread out like he was building a paper raft to float out of there. Empty paper cups everywhere, the cheap kind that collapse if you hold them too hard. A couple energy drink cans, crumpled, and one sad plate with the crust of a pizza slice welded to it. My fingers were moving without my brain. Tick, tick, tick on the keyboard. Recalculate. Cross-reference. Tie out. My eyes burned. I could feel the tension in my jaw like a clamp. A wise muttered, "If this client ever says quick question again, I'm going to bite them." I laughed, but it came out wrong. Too sharp like a cough. "You need a tetanus shot." "Worth it." He sounded normal. Tired, annoyed, sarcastic. Human. That mattered later. Because the first time I heard the scraping, I honestly thought my brain was just glitching from exhaustion. It was faint. Just a whisper of sound, like someone dragging the tip of a pen along the underside of a desk. I froze, fingers hovering over my keyboard, and listened. Nothing. The office swallowed it. The HVAC hum rolled on. A wise kept clicking his mouse and flipping pages. I stared across the row of empty cubicles, across dark monitors and abandoned chairs, and saw nothing move. I went back to my screen, tried to force my brain into the numbers again. The scraping came back. This time it was closer. Not loud, just definite. A slow, deliberate sound, like something being pulled across carpet that shouldn't be moving at all. It made the tiny hairs on my forearms rise without permission. I looked up again. Did you? A wise snorted, shoulders shaking. Bro, he said, and he started laughing like he'd been holding it in. You should see your face. I blinked. What the hell are you talking about? He pointed under his desk. My foot, he said, still laughing. I was doing that on purpose. You look like you saw a ghost. Relief hit me so hard it pissed me off. My heart was doing that stupid fast flutter you get when your body thinks it's about to die, but your brain can't find a reason. You're an asshole, I said, but it didn't have any real heat. It was easier to be annoyed than scared. A wise wiped at his eyes. I am sorry. I am sorry. You've just been staring at that sheet like it owes you money. It does, I said. This firm owes me 4 years of sleep. He raised his cup in salute. It was empty. I leaned back and felt my spine crack. The chair groaned like it hated me. My whole body felt like it had been run through a machine and stamped approved without anyone checking if it still worked. You know what? I said, and the decision felt like a life raft. Let's call it. We're done. It's past 11. Boss man's not going to approve overtime anyway. A wise made a face. Boss man's not going to approve my funeral either, but he's basically planning it. Exactly, I said. We'll pick it up tomorrow morning, fresh eyes, less brain rot. Or, you pick it up. Tomorrow's literally not my problem. That landed. He stared at me for a second, then nodded. Right, he said softer. Your last day. Thank God, I said, and meant it so hard it almost hurt. I'm gonna go home and stare at a wall for 8 hours. A wise grinned. Enjoy life, huh? Touch grass. See your family. Remember what the sun looks like. Remember what I look like, I said. I've been living in this shirt. We packed up in that slow, ritual way. Shut laptops. Stack papers. Stuffed chargers into bags. The office felt even bigger when we stood up, like the empty chairs were watching us. It's stupid, I know. It's an office. But late at night, under dying fluorescence, the place didn't feel like a workplace. It felt like a set after the actors left. Like we're the only ones who didn't get the memo that filming was over. A wise slung his bag over his shoulder, then hesitated like something had snagged his mind. Hey, he said, have you heard from a Shad? The name hit the air and the temperature dropped in my chest. Not literally, just something tightened. I kept my eyes on my desk, on the stupid little pen I'd stolen from a client, on anything that wasn't a Wise's face. No, I said. Why? Because it's weird, he said, and the joking tone was gone. He quit last week. Just gone. No budje lunch, no drama. And then nothing. No replies. No, I'm alive message. Nothing. I shrugged like it didn't matter. Like I wasn't thinking about it too. A week isn't that long. For a Shad it is, a Wise said. That guy sends memes while he's brushing his teeth. That was true. A Shad couldn't stay quiet if he tried. He was the kind of person who filled space. Loud laugh, big opinions, always acting like the firm was a temporary inconvenience on the way to something better. He talked about leaving all the time, but when he finally did, it was like he fell off the edge of the map. A Wise lowered his voice, even though we were alone. You think the rumors are true? I exhaled through my nose. The firm had the kind of grapevine that would make a church Annie proud. People lived on whispers. Promotions, layoffs, affairs, who cried in the bathroom, who got caught sleeping under a desk. And then there were the stupid rumors, the ones that always came back around like a bad song. The ones about people who left. I think people like telling scary stories, I said. I think you're tired and your brain wants something to chew on besides numbers. A Wise didn't smile. Okay, then what about Sarah and Ahmed? My stomach did that little dip. Sarah and Ahmed were another couple who had left 3 months earlier. They were married, both in assurance, and they'd been loud about moving abroad. China, they'd said, like it was a magic word. New jobs, new life, baby on the way. Everyone had congratulated them, thrown some cheap party with supermarket cake. Then they were gone. And then nothing. No updates. No baby photos. No smug, look at our new apartment posts. Their socials went quiet like someone turned the volume down to 0. I told myself it was normal. People got busy. Time zones, new jobs, pregnancy, whatever. There were logical explanations. There had to be. That was 3 months ago, I said. They're probably settling in. Or they hate all of us and don't want to talk. Awise's eyes flicked past me to the dark office beyond. Or, he said, and his voice dropped even more, they didn't actually leave. I felt annoyed again, and I clung to it because it was better than the alternative. You're letting the grapevine rot your brain, I said. You know how people talk. One person doesn't answer a text, and suddenly they're in a basement. Awise didn't move. He just looked at me like he wanted me to admit I'd thought about it too. I grabbed my bag. The strap dug into my shoulder. Speculate all you want, I said. I'm heading out. I'm done being in this building longer than necessary. He finally sighed and nodded. Fine, he said. Fine. It's weird. It's weird, I agreed. But weird doesn't equal supernatural murder factory. That got a laugh out of him, small, reluctant. Supernatural murder factory, he repeated. Great. Now I'll never sleep again. We headed toward the elevator together, footsteps muted by carpet that had absorbed too many years of stress. The hallway to the lift was a narrow stretch with framed corporate posters, smiling people in suits shaking hands, words like integrity and excellence printed in bold like they were trying to convince you. Awise pressed the elevator button. The little circle lit up, dull yellow. While we waited, he glanced at me. Seriously, he said, you okay? Like, you sure you're good leaving? You don't look happy. I almost snapped at him, then stopped. He wasn't wrong. I didn't feel happy. I felt drained, hollowed out, like the firm had scooped me out and left the shell standing. I'll be fine, I said. I just want out. The elevator dinged. The doors slid open with a tired sigh. Awise stepped in, then looked back at me. You coming? I didn't move right away. Something about leaving felt strange, like stepping off a dock onto a boat you weren't sure would hold you. For years of routine, for years of the same badge swipe, the same coffee machine, the same late nights. I hated it, but it was familiar. Go ahead, I said. I'll be right behind. I just want to take one last look. He rolled his eyes. Don't get sentimental on me. Shut up, I said, but I smiled. Awise hit the ground floor button. Don't die up here, he said. Not planning to, I replied. The doors closed. The elevator began to descend. Through the narrowing gap, I saw his face, tired, amused, unaware. Then the doors sealed shut and he was gone. I stood there in the hallway, alone in the third-floor quiet. I turned back toward the office and looked at it like I was trying to memorize it for court. The old filing cabinets crammed with binders nobody ever opened. The attendance machine by the entrance that still used a thumbprint scanner like we were in 2009. The stupid motivational posters. The smell of dust and toner. Never thought I'd see the day. I murmured, mostly to hear a voice. I walked into the elevator lobby and pressed the button again. The light was still on. The elevator came back up fast, too fast. I remember thinking that, actually, wow, they fixed something for once. The doors opened. Empty. I stepped in and hit the ground floor button. The doors slid shut. The fluorescent ceiling light in the elevator flickered, then steadied. My reflection wavered in the mirrored wall. Tie loosened, eyes red, hair stuck up. I looked like a man who'd been living off caffeine and spite. The elevator started down. Floor numbers ticked past on the panel. 3, then the arrow blinked. And then the whole car jerked like it had hit something solid. Not a gentle stop. A hard, stomach-lurching jolt that made my knees bend and my bag swing. The lights flickered. The elevator groaned, metal complaining. Seriously? I muttered, bracing a hand against the rail. The elevator stopped. The panel above the doors didn't show a clean number. It was wrong. Like the display was broken mid-thought. The lower half of a 2 and the upper half of a 1 glowed at the same time, overlapping like a glitching digital clock. I stared at it, waiting for it to correct, waiting for the doors to open onto the second floor or the first. Nothing happened. The doors stayed closed. The air inside the car felt thicker, warmer. I could hear the faint whine of the motor still humming like it was trying to decide what to do. I pressed the ground floor button again. The button lit, then dimmed like it didn't care. I pressed it again, harder, then the second floor button, then the alarm. Nothing. A tight irritation wrapped around my chest. Not fear yet, not then, just anger, because it was always something with that building. Always some half-broken thing that nobody fixed until it cost someone money. "Come on," I said, and slapped the panel once. The lights flickered again. The elevator shuddered. Then, without warning, the doors slid open. Not onto a floor I recognized. A corridor stretched out in front of me, black as a throat. My first thought was that the lights were just off. My second thought was that the hallway looked wrong. The walls were the same bland corporate paint, but the layout didn't match any floor. No familiar carpet pattern. No glass partitions. No sainik. It looked like a hallway designed by someone who'd heard a description of an office and tried to build one from memory. I turned back to the panel. It still showed that broken half number. The arrow blinked. The buttons didn't respond when I pressed them. I pulled my phone out and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut into the darkness and showed me more of the corridor. The carpet was darker here, almost damp looking. The air smelled stale, like a closet that hadn't been opened in years. My signal bars were there, but weak. One bar flickering like it was embarrassed. I called the night security guard, the guy who sat in the lobby and watched YouTube all night. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. "Of course," I muttered. Behind me, the elevator doors began to close. I stuck my arm out instinctively, expecting the sensor to catch and reopen. It didn't. The doors slid shut against my forearm with enough pressure to sting. I yanked back just in time before it pinched harder. The doors sealed. The elevator made a soft mechanical noise and started moving again, like it had decided I wasn't part of the plan. I stared at the closed doors, stunned, then pressed the call button on the wall. Nothing lit. Nothing dinged. It was dead. For the first time, a thin blade of fear slid under my ribs. "Okay," I said out loud. "Okay, fine. Stairs. There are stairs." I swept my phone light along the corridor. The beam caught a door at the far end, slightly ajar. No exit signs. No glowing emergency lights. Just that door, breathing darkness around it like it was waiting. My footsteps sounded wrong. The carpet muffled them, but there was a faint wetness to the sound, like my soles were lifting off something tacky. I reached the door and put my hand on it. The metal was cold. Too cold. I pushed. The door swung inward with a soft scrape, like it hadn't been opened in a long time. The room beyond wasn't a storage closet or a stairwell. It was an office. Rows of workstations. Chairs tucked in neatly. Monitors black. Everything arranged with a kind of rigid order that felt intentional. No personal clutter. No half-finished cups. No sticky notes. It looked like a showroom version of our floor, but it was wrong in small ways. The desks were older models, the kind our firm had phased out years ago. The carpet pattern didn't match. The ceiling was lower, giving the whole room a pressed-down feeling, like the air was under pressure. I swung my flashlight slowly, and my beam caught something on the first desk. A name tag, not the usual laminated one we used. This was just tape, cheap masking tape, with a name written in block letters. Under it, a photo was taped down, an ID-style picture of a man I'd never seen, staring into the camera with that forced office smile. Akhtar Ali. I frowned. Who the hell? I moved to the next desk. Another name tag. Another photo. Perveen Nabil. Another stranger. Another fixed smile. I walked faster, the light jumping with my movement. Desk after desk. Name after name I didn't recognize. Some looked older, like photos from years ago. Some looked recent, crisp. The farther I went, the more my mouth dried out. Because it wasn't random. It was curated. Every desk had a name. Every desk had a face. Like a roster. Like a roll call. My phone light landed on a name I did recognize, and my brain refused it for a full second, like it was rejecting a bad number. Ashad Bashir. I stepped closer, so fast I nearly tripped over the chair. The photo taped to the desk was a shad. Same stupid grin, same slightly crooked nose. The picture was from his last day because I remembered it. A wise had taken a group selfie near the pantry, a shad holding up a peace sign like he was escaping prison. My throat went tight. I swung the light to the next desk. Sarah Imran. Her photo was there too. A candid shot of her laughing at something in the break room, hand on her belly. Next to her, Ahmed Farouk. His photo was a bad angle, mid-blink, like someone snapped it without telling him. I backed up, the beam shaking. What the fuck is this? I whispered. The room was too quiet. No hum of computers. No distant city noise. Just the soft hiss of my phone's flashlight speaker. I turned, scanning the rest of the desks, and my stomach started to crawl up into my throat because at the far end of the row, there was one last workstation. The tape on it wasn't yellowed. It was fresh. The writing was fresh. My name, not misspelled, not a nickname. My full name, the way it appeared on payroll. And the photo, taped beneath, it made my vision blur for a second because it was me, not an old ID photo, not some LinkedIn headshot. It was me from that night. The stupid photo a Wise had taken a couple hours earlier when we were the last ones left, and he joked, for memories, and snapped it while I flipped him off. I could see my own exhausted eyes staring back at me, caught in fluorescent light, trapped on a desk that shouldn't exist. My skin went prickly all over. No, I said. No, that's not. I turned away like looking at it too long would make it real. At the far end of the room, beyond the last row of desks, there was another door. Unlike the one I'd come through, this one was heavier. Industrial. It had a handle instead of a knob. The kind of door you put on a secure room. Light leaked faintly from beneath it, a thin gray line. My brain latched onto it like a solution. An exit, a stairwell, something normal. I walked to it, try not to look at the desks again. Try not to think about how someone could have taken that photo, printed it, taped it, all within hours. Try not to think about why. I wrapped my fingers around the handle. Cold. Same unnatural cold. I pulled. The door opened, and the smell hit me like a punch to the face. Oat. Thick and layered, like garbage left in heat for weeks, mixed with the metallic sting of blood. It forced itself into my nose, into the back of my throat. My eyes watered instantly. I gagged, hand flying up to cover my mouth. Oh my God, I choked. My flashlight beam cut into the room beyond and caught the edge of something pale on the floor. I took one step inside and my foot hit something soft. I stumbled. My ankle rolled. My bag swung. I went down hard on my knee, pain flaring, and my phone flew out of my hand. The flashlight clattered across the floor and spun, its beams sweeping wildly across the room like a lighthouse in a storm. In that spinning light, I saw too much. Chains hanging from a ceiling. Not decorative. Thick, greasy chains dangling down with metal hooks attached. Meat hooks, the kind you see in butcher shops. And there were bodies. Not all at once. Not in a neat row. Just hanging, limp shapes swinging gently, like the room itself was breathing. The light spun again and caught the floor. Dark patches, dried smears, puddles that weren't water, parts, pieces, an arm. That's what I tripped over. A human arm lying on the floor like someone dropped it and didn't bother to pick it up. My brain tried to argue. Halloween prop. Movie set. Some sick prank. Then the smell shoved the argument into the ground and stomped on it. My phone finished spinning and the flashlight beam settled, angled up. It landed on a face. A head on the floor, separated cleanly from whatever body it used to belong to, skin pulled tight over bone like it had dried a little, eyes half-lidded in a dead stare. The face was grayish, bloated in places, but it was still recognizable. Asyat. I made a sound I've never made before. Not a scream, not a sob. Something animal and broken that came from a place deeper than language. I scrambled backward, palms sliding in something sticky, and my hand came up wet. In my flashlight beam, it looked black, but when I rubbed it between my fingers, it felt wrong. thick, tacky like syrup. Blood. Old blood. My stomach heaved. I swallowed bile so hard it burned. No, I whispered, shaking my head like denial could change it. No, no, no. The room was bigger than it first looked. The ceiling was low, but the space extended further back into shadow. The chains swayed faintly. I could hear something dripping, slow and patient. Plink, plink. I forced myself to move because staying near a shad's head felt like stepping into a grave. I grabbed my phone, fingers slipping, and stumbled to my feet. My knee screamed. I ignored it. The flashlight beam shook as I swept it across the horror. Some bodies were missing limbs. Some were just torsos. Some looked older, skin stretched dry like jerky. Others looked fresh enough that the blood under them still glistened. Mouths were forced open in silent screams, some hooked through the jaw, some through the cheeks. The hooks didn't just hold them, they displayed them like trophies. My legs wanted to fold. My brain wanted to shut down. But the survival part of me, the dumb, stubborn animal part, took over and dragged me forward. In the far corner, past the hanging bodies, there was another door. Not fully closed. Light seeped out from beneath it, brighter than the thin line from before. Warm light, yellow like an old bulb. And from behind that door, I heard something. A wet chopping sound. Thud, slice, thud, and a voice. Low, raspy, amused like someone talking to themselves in a kitchen. I pressed myself against the wall, try not to breathe through my nose, try not to make a sound. My heart was so loud it felt like it was vibrating in my teeth. I crept closer to the door, each step careful, my shoes sticking faintly to the floor. The smell got worse near the crack, fresh blood and something sour. I leaned in and peered through. The room beyond was lit by a single hanging lamp that swung slightly, casting moving shadows. The light fell on a big metal table in the center, the kind used in industrial kitchens. On top of it was a body, or what was left of one, spread out like meat, limbs splayed at wrong angles. Standing over it was a man. Calling him a man feels wrong. He was enormous. Not just tall, though he had to be close to 7 feet, but wide in a way that didn't look humanly proportional. His shoulders were slabs. His arms were thick as my thighs. His back was a landscape of scars and stitches, like someone had sewn him together from other people. He was something like an apron, but it was soaked through, dark and heavy. His head was shaved, shiny with sweat. His neck disappeared into folds. In his hand was a cleaver that looked too big to be real, like a prop from a cartoon, except it moved with smooth confidence. He brought it down again. Thud. Something, an arm. Maybe, separated and slid off the table with a wet slap. He chuckled to himself, breath rattling. "Gotta love it," he said, voice scraping like sandpaper, when the little fishy swims right into my hands. My blood ran cold. He paused, head tilting slightly like he'd heard something. I froze so hard my muscles screamed. Slowly, he turned, and even through the crack in the door, even through the swinging light and shadow, I felt his eyes hit me like a physical thing. He smiled. His teeth were too small for his mouth, crowded and stained. His lips pulled back like he was enjoying a joke. "Found you," he rasped. My body moved before my brain could. I jerked back from the door, stumbling, almost falling over a pile of limbs behind me. My phone light swung wildly, catching hanging bodies swaying from the sudden rush of air. I turned to run. The door behind me exploded outward. Not opened, not kicked. Exploded, wood splintering like someone had thrown a bomb through it. The impact slammed into the air, knocking dust and dried flakes of blood into a cloud. A cleaver embedded itself in the wall beside my head with a solid, horrifying thunk. I screamed then, couldn't stop it. My voice ripped out of me. Behind me, something heavy moved through the doorway. A presence that made the room feel smaller. "Oh boy," the voice boomed, closer now, thick with delight. "Oh boy, oh boy." Looks like the little fishy swam away. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Each one a dull thud that vibrated through the floor. I do love me some good hide and seek, he said, almost sing-song like he was talking to a child. I ran blindly, flashlight beam jittering, and dropped behind the nearest pile of bodies because there was nowhere else. I pressed myself into the stacked dead flesh. Try not to gag, try not to breathe, try not to sob. The smell was unbearable up close. Hot rot and clotted blood and something chemical like cleaning fluid used too late. My cheek touched cold skin. My hand sank into a soft cavity where something used to be. I bit down on my own knuckle to keep from making noise. The butcher, because that's what he was, there's no other word, stepped into the slaughter room. His silhouette blotted out the light from the other room for a moment. He reached up and yanked his cleaver free from a wall with a sound like tearing cloth. He laughed deep and wet. "Where'd you go?" he called, voice bouncing off the low ceiling. "Come on, Fishy. Don't be shy." His footsteps came closer, unhurried, like he knew time was on his side. And I realized in that suffocating pile of bodies that the elevator hadn't malfunctioned. It had delivered me. The bodies I was pressed against weren't still. Not in a movie jump scare way, in a slow, gravity way. The chains overhead creaked with every step that thing took, and the torsos swayed like wind chimes made out of meat. One of them bumped my shoulder, and the hook inside its mouth scraped bone with a tiny clicking sound. I forced myself not to vomit. If I threw up, I'd make noise. If I made noise, he'd find me. His boots, if they were boots, I never actually saw the damn things clearly, thudded through the room. Each step landed with confidence, like he could afford to be loud because nobody down here ever heard anything that mattered. "Fishy," he called, dragging the word out. "Where'd you swim off to?" He slapped the cleaver against something metal. The ring of it cut straight through my skull. I squeezed my eyes shut so hard it hurt. My phone was clutched against my chest, flashlight still on, but I'd angled it down into the pile with me, so it didn't throw a beam across the room. The light bled through gaps between limbs and thin lines, like sunlight through blinds. His shadow passed over the floor near my hiding spot. My whole body went cold. I could hear his breathing now. Not heavy panting, just big. A slow, wet inhale and a hissy exhale that sounded like air being pushed through a clogged drain. He stopped, right there, close enough that if I reached out, I probably could have touched him, and the thought made my stomach twist. He sniffed the air. I swear to God he sniffed like an animal. He hummed, pleased. Fresh. My eyes watered, not from fear. My body was sweating cold and my face was pressed against something that used to be someone's stomach, and the smell was crawling up my nose like insects. He shifted again, and I heard a soft, wet sound like something dragging. Maybe his apron, maybe something else. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to reverse time and go back to my chair and my stupid spreadsheet and a wise laughing about my face. I wanted any universe except this one. Then he chuckled. "Don't worry," he said, like he was calming a kid hiding under a bed. "I won't rush it. I like when you little fishies think you might get away." My heart pounded so hard I could taste it. He wandered off, footsteps moving toward the far side of the room. I listened, counting the distance, trying to make my brain do math again because math was safer than panic. 3 steps. 4. 5. He stopped again. The chains overhead creaked louder. One of the hanging bodies swung and bumped another, and their bones knocked together. My eyes opened a crack. Through the mess of limbs and fabric, I saw him, just a slice of him, a slab of back and shoulder moving under the hanging light from the other room. He lifted the cleaver and scraped it slowly along the metal edge of the table. Screak. The sound went through me like a needle. "Come on," he sang softly. "Make it fun." He walked out of the slaughter room, back toward the memorial office. His silhouette passed through the broken doorway, and then the light shifted and he was gone. But I didn't move. Not right away. Because the silence that followed wasn't safe silence. It was listening silence. I stayed curled in that pile until my legs cramped and my skin prickled from touching cold flesh. My breathing was shallow, quiet, pathetic. I hated myself for how scared I was, like fear was some kind of weakness I could bully out of my system. I forced my head up, millimeter by millimeter, and listened. Nothing but the slow drip. Plink, plink. Far away, a heavy footstep in a different room. Then another. He was moving around out there, not stomping, not charging, just searching. I couldn't stay here. If he came back, if he decided to check the piles, I'd be done. I didn't have a weapon. I didn't have a plan. All I had was luck and adrenaline and the fact that he enjoyed the chase. I slid my hand out of the pile and touched the floor. Sticky, cold. The grime of blood and rot had dried into a film that tugged at my skin. I crawled. No dignity. No standing. I crawled like an insect, keeping low, trying not to disturb the hanging bodies. My knees screamed again when I put weight on it, but I bit it down. Pain was loud in your head. I couldn't let it become loud in the room. I made it to the doorway he'd shattered, the one leading back into the memorial office. I paused, peeking around the frame. The memorial room was still dark, but my flashlight could reach it now. Rows of desks, taped names, faces, and my desk waiting at the end like a punchline. I heard him somewhere in that room. Not footsteps now, more like movement, the shift of weight, the scrape of something being dragged, slow and deliberate, like he wanted me to hear it. I pulled my phone light tighter to my body and eased through the broken doorway. The moment I crossed that threshold, the air changed. Still stale, but less wet, less rotten. Like the memorial room was the clean lobby of hell, and the slaughter room was what waited beyond the velvet rope. My shoes made the faint, tacky sound again on the carpet. Every step felt too loud. I moved between desks, crouched low. The photos watched me as I passed. Some of them looked like they'd been taken in secret. People mid-conversation, mid-laugh, mid-blink. Proof of life turned into proof of ownership. My flashlight flicked over the desk, names again, and my chest tightened. Akhtar Ali, Perveen Nabil. Names I didn't know, but now I did in a different way. They weren't employees. They were inventory. A low sound rolled through the room. A sniff. I froze, ducking behind a cubicle wall. He was closer than I thought. I could see him now, his shape filling a gap between desks, moving slowly like a shark in shallow water. He didn't need a rush because there was nowhere for me to go. He dragged his cleaver tip along the edge of a desk, making that whispery scrape. Fishy, he murmured, almost affectionate. You gotta be smarter than that. My mouth went dry. My throat felt like it was lined with sand. He stopped in front of a desk and leaned down. The desk creaked under his weight. He picked up the photo taped there, inspected it like a collector, then set it back carefully. I saw which desk it was. Sarah's. He patted the tape with a gentle, proud motion, like he was smoothing a label on a jar. Sweet one, he said quietly. Screamed for so long. I had to clam my teeth together to stop the sound that wanted to come out of me. He moved on, humming under his breath, and every desk he passed he touched. A little tap-tap like counting. Then he reached my desk. I couldn't see his face from where I was, but I saw his hand, huge, scarred, thick fingers, reach down and stroke the tape with my name on it. Oh, he whispered, pleased. There you are. He peeled the corner of my photo up slightly, then pressed it back down, sealing it like he was claiming it. Nice and fresh, he said. Still warm upstairs. That's my favorite. I swallowed hard. My own saliva sounded too loud. He tilted his head, listening. For a second, everything held still. Him, me, the air. Then he chuckled again. You're holding your breath, he said. That's cute. My lungs burned. He turned away from my desk and started moving again, deeper into the memorial room, toward the door I'd come through earlier, the corridor door. He was hurting me without even trying. He was pushing me away from the elevator lobby. I needed a new move. I scanned the room from my hiding spot. Beyond the desks, on the far wall, there was a narrow passage, something I hadn't noticed before because the dark swallowed it. It looked like a service hallway, maybe leading to storage or maintenance. My heart kicked. A way out, or at least a new place to die that wasn't under a pile of corpses. I waited until his footsteps drifted farther, until his humming softened, and then I slid out from behind the cubicle and moved fast, still crouched, but faster than a crawl. My knee protested. I ignored it. I darted between desks, knocking a chair slightly with my hip. The chair rolled an inch and the wheels whispered against carpet. I froze. His humming stopped. Silence snapped tight like a wire. Then, there you are. I ran. Not full sprint, my body couldn't, but a desperate, limping rush toward that narrow passage. I heard him behind me, and the sound wasn't fast footsteps. It was heavy, amused steps. He wasn't chasing. He was following. I hit the passage and shoved myself into it. The walls were closer here, painted the same dead corporate beige. My flashlight beam bounced ahead and caught a door at the end. Not an exit sign, not stairs, just a door with a keypad next to it. The keypad had smears on it that looked like someone had pressed it with dirty fingers over and over. I grabbed the handle and yanked. Locked. Of course it was locked. Behind me, the butcher's voice floated into the passage, calm as a bedtime story. You see the problem, right, fishy? I turned, backing up against the locked door, and my flashlight beam caught him as he stepped into the passage entrance. Up close in that tight space, he looked even bigger. The ceiling seemed lower just because he existed under it. His apron was stiff with old blood. His face, Jesus, his face looked like someone had tried to assemble a person out of parts and got bored halfway through. One eye drooped a little, lazy. His cheeks were pocked with scars. His lips were cracked and wet. He smiled anyway. The cleaver rested on his shoulder like it weighed nothing. Nowhere to go, he said. Fuck you. I spat because I needed to be angry or I'd collapse. His grin widened. That's the spirit. I lifted my phone like it was a weapon, like I could blind him with light. He laughed, a deep bubbling sound. You think that helps? He took one step forward. I flinched, and in that flinch, my elbow hit the keypad. It beeped, a tiny, pathetic beep. We both stopped. His eyes flicked to the keypad, then back to me. Oh, he said, amused. You want to try the door? I stared at the keypad, brain firing sparks. It needed a code. I didn't have a code, but the smears, the grease, the fact that the elevator buttons hadn't worked. Biometric, I whispered without meaning to. His smile didn't falter. Smart fishy, he said, but too late. He lunged. Not slow now, not playful. Fast. His hand shot out and grabbed my wrist, crushing it like a clamp. Pain exploded up my arm. I screamed despite myself and tried to yank away, but he pulled me forward like I weighed nothing. He slammed me against the wall. My head hit drywall with a dull thud. White sparks burst behind my eyes. Stop squirming, he growled, voice dropping into something uglier. You're making it messy. I kicked at him, knee, shin, whatever I could reach, but it was like kicking a refrigerator. He didn't even grunt. He just shifted his weight, and my kick hit air. He raised the cleaver. For a split second, I saw my own reflection in the metal. Wide eyes, blood smeared on my cheek, mouth open in a silent plea. Then he didn't swing. He lowered the cleaver and leaned close, inhaling deep in my neck like he was smelling a steak. He murmured. Office smell. Stress sweat. Ink. Paper. I spat in his face. It hit his cheek and slid down slowly. For the first time, his smile twitched. Oh, he said softly. Okay. He slammed his forehead into mine. Pain detonated. My vision blurred. I tasted blood instantly. He let go of my wrist just enough for me to stumble, and in that half second of loosened grip, my hand slid along the wall and hit something, another door handle. I hadn't seen it in the dark. A side door tucked into the narrow passage. I grabbed it and yanked with all the strength panic could give me. It opened. I fell through it. The room inside was dim and cramped, filled with shelves. Not supplies, no printer paper, no toner. These shelves held boxes, but the boxes were labeled in black marker. Names. More names. I slammed the door behind me and threw my weight against it. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Just me panting, blood dripping from my nose, the metallic taste coating my tongue. Then the handle jerked. The door rattled as he tested it. "You can't lock me out," he called, voice still calm but colder now. "This is my house." I looked around frantically. No other door, no window, just shelves and boxes and that same faint hum in the air, like the building itself was alive. My flashlight beam swept over the labels. Ashad Bashir, Sarah Imran, Ahmed Farouk. Boxes like file storage, but the lids were sealed with tape that had dark stains on it. I stumbled back, horrified, and my foot hit something on the floor. A plastic crate. Inside it, bundled like trash, were personal items. A watch, a wallet, a phone with a cracked screen, an employee badge. I grabbed the badge and held it up in the light. It belonged to Sarah. My stomach turned. The door rattled again, harder. The frame creaked. "You're just delaying," he said, almost bored. "I'll get you either way." I scanned the shelves again and saw something hanging from a nail on the far wall, a ring of keys. Not normal keys. They were attached to things. My flashlight beam landed on one, and my brain tried to reject what it saw. A severed finger, shriveled, dark, dried like jerky, with a keychain loop pierced through it. I gagged. The butcher slammed into the door once, making the whole room shake. I didn't have time to be disgusted. I didn't have time to be human. I grabbed the key ring off the nail. The finger swung, tapping against my knuckles. It was lighter than it should have been. Dry. Hard. The door bowed inward again. I spotted something else in the room, a vent grate low on the wall, held in place by screws. I dropped to my knees and tried to twist one out with my fingers. Too tight. I used the keys like a makeshift screwdriver, jamming a key into the screw head, twisting until my wrist screamed. The first screw loosened. The door banged again. A crack appeared in the drywall beside it. "Open it," he sang. "Open it, and I'll make it quick." "Go to hell," I rasped because that was all I had. Second screw. Third. My hand shook so badly I kept slipping. Blood from my nose dripped onto the vent and smeared. The fourth screw finally came loose. I ripped the grate off and shoved it aside. A narrow duct yawned behind it. Too small for him. Maybe small enough for me. The air from it was cold and stale, like it had been sealed off for years. I shoved my phone ahead, then pushed my shoulders into the duct. The metal edges scraped my arms. I bit my lip to keep from crying out. My knee screamed as it dragged. The duct tasted like dust and rust. Behind me, the door finally splintered. Wood cracked. Hinges screamed, and his voice filled the cramped room, low and satisfied. "There you are." I scrambled forward, elbows and knees, dragging myself through the duct like I was being born wrong. My breath came in ragged gasps that echoed in the metal. Then his hand slammed onto my ankle. His fingers wrapped around it like a cuff. He yanked. My body slid backward a foot, skin ripping against the duct edge. Pain flared hot. I screamed. "You're not a rabbit," he growled, and for the first time I heard real anger. "You don't burrow out." I kicked wildly with my free leg, heel striking metal. Nothing. My fingers clawed at the duct floor, nails catching on rust. And then my hand closed around something, another loose grate, maybe, or a broken metal strip. I grabbed it and stabbed backward blindly. The metal scraped his knuckles. He hissed and loosened his grip just enough. I tore forward, ripping my ankle free. Skin peeled. Blood slicked the duct. I didn't look back. I just crawled until my lungs felt like they were collapsing. The duct angled downward slightly and then ended in another grate. I slammed into a shoulder first, and it popped outward, falling with a clatter into a different room. I tumbled out and hit the floor hard. For a second, I thought I was back in the slaughter room because the smell was there again. Blood. Rot. But this was different. Brighter. More chaotic. This was the butcher's room. The one I'd peeked in earlier. The hanging lamp swung overhead, throwing light in jerky arcs. The metal table stood in the center, still smeared with fresh blood and pieces of someone. The floor was slick. The walls were stained so dark they looked permanently wet. My phone flashlight caught a hand on the table, someone's hand, fingers curled like they'd try to grab something and failed. I backed away from the table, gagging, and looked around like a trapped animal. No obvious exit. Just another door leading back to the memorial room and maybe a closet and a heavy, freezer-looking unit against one wall. The cleaver I'd seen earlier wasn't in his hand now, because he wasn't here yet. But he would be. I stumbled to my feet, almost slipping, and started searching. I slapped my hand along the walls, feeling for switches, latches, anything. My brain screamed one thought over and over. Find a way out. Nothing. No keypads. No stairways. Just butcher tools hanging neatly. Hooks, saws, knives. A grotesque little workshop for turning people into parts. My eyes landed on the freezer unit. It had a handle and a lock. I grabbed it and yanked. Locked. I punched the metal in frustration and pain shot up my hand. Come on, I whispered, voice breaking. Come on, come on. The door to the memorial room creaked. I froze. Footsteps, heavy and fast now. He'd taken a long way around and beaten me here anyway. His voice came through the doorway, amused again. Well, he boomed. The little fishy strayed too far from the fishing net. I spun, frantic, and my eyes landed on something hanging from a nail near the tool rack. A keychain, not keys, just a loop with a big dried finger attached, similar to the one I'd grabbed earlier, but this one was bigger, fresher looking, like it hadn't had time to fully shrivel. It hung there like a joke. I snatched it without thinking. The finger was stiff and cold in my palm. Behind me, the footsteps came closer, shaking the floor. I backed away from the doorway, putting the table between us. I could hear him breathing now, that wet slow inhale. I don't want to die, I whispered, and it was the most honest thing I'd ever said. I don't want to die. He stepped into the room, and seeing him in full light made my brain stutter. He was massive, yes, but it was the details that ruined me. The stitches on his arms, thick black thread like someone had sewn torn fabric. The scars that didn't match, some old, some new, like his body was a project that never finished. The way his fingers looked swollen and blunt, nails cracked, knuckles shiny. His eyes locked on me, and he smiled with pure ownership. Oh, he said softly, you really don't. He moved around the table like a predator circling. I held the finger keychain up like a crucifix, like it would burn him. He laughed. That's my finger, he said, like I'd stolen his wallet. Stay back. I snapped, voice cracking. He took another step. I grabbed a knife off the wall with my free hand. One of the smaller ones, because I wasn't thinking, because my brain just wanted something sharp between me and him. The handle was slick. I nearly dropped it. He saw it, and his smile widened. Oh, he crooned. The fishy's got teeth. Get the fuck away from me, I said. My voice sounded wrong in that room, too small. He didn't speed up. He didn't slow down. He just kept coming, casual as a man walking to his fridge. And then he lunged. I slashed. The knife caught his forearm and opened a line of dark blood. He didn't even flinch. He grabbed my wrist, twisted, and the knife flew from my hand. Pain shot through my arm like electricity. I screamed and tried to yank away, but he pulled me forward and slammed me down onto the metal table. My back hit with a clang that rang through the room. The cold metal sucked the heat from my skin. He climbed over me like I was nothing, his weight crushing the air out of my chest. One huge hand wrapped around my throat. His fingers dug in. Instant panique. Real panic. The kind that makes your body do stupid, desperate things. I clawed at his wrist. His skin felt thick, almost rubbery. My nails didn't do shit. He leaned close, face inches from mine, breath hot and rancid. Oh, he whispered, grinning. I do love a strong fish. My vision started to spark around the edges. My throat burned. I tried to inhale and got nothing but a wheeze. He squeezed harder. Now, he said, voice dropping into something almost gentle. Playtime is over, fishy. Time to die. My hands flailed, searching, grabbing at anything, and my fingers closed around the finger keychain. The dried finger was in my palm, stiff and ridged. The metal loop bit into my skin. My brain snapped into a single clear line. Hurt him. I drove the keychain upward with everything I had left. Not into his arm, not into his chest, into his face. The metal loop and whatever sharp it was attached, maybe a broken key, maybe the edge of the ring, hit his eye. It sank in with a wet pop that I will hear in my dreams until I die. He screamed, not a playful, oh you got me sound, a real, tearing scream of pain and rage. His grip loosened instantly. His hand flew to his face and hot blood splashed onto my cheek. I sucked in air like I'd been drowning, coughing, gagging, lungs on fire. He staggered back, roaring, one hand clutching his ruined eye. You piece of shit, he bellowed. I'll skin you alive. I rolled off the table and hit the floor hard, knee pain flaring. I didn't care. I scrambled up, slipping in blood, and ran. Out of the butcher's room, back into the memorial room. My flashlight beam bounced wildly as I sprinted between desks. Chairs toppled. Papers. Where the hell did the papers even come from? Fluttered up like startled birds. My shoulder clipped a desk, and the pain shot through me, but I kept moving. Behind me, he crashed out of his room like a bulldozer, screaming, snarling, cleaver now in his hand again. The memorial room became chaos. He swung the cleaver into desks, splitting with like it was cardboard. Photos flew off, tape ripping. Name tags tore loose and fluttered down. I looked back once, one stupid instinctive glance, and saw him barreling through the desks, knocking chairs aside, his wounded eye leaking dark fluid down his cheek. His grin was gone. Now he looked like pure rage with skin on it. I hit the corridor door and shoved through. The corridor was still dark, still wrong. The elevator was at the end like a promise. I ran toward it, limping hard now, knee barely working. I slammed the call button. Nothing. I hit it again. Nothing. No, come on. Behind me, the memorial room exploded with noise, wood cracking, furniture smashing. He was tearing through it, furious, not caring about the game anymore. I hammered the elevator button with my finger until my fingertip ached. Dead. I heard him hit the corridor doorway. His heavy footsteps changed sound in the hallway, louder without carpet, like thunder in a tunnel. Panic flooded me, so hard my vision blurred. Then my hand tightened around the finger keychain. Biometric. Not buttons. Not electricity. Flesh. I pressed the dried finger against the elevator button. There was a soft click. The button lit up. The elevator above groaned, gears whining like something waking up. I sobbed a laugh I didn't recognize. The panel above the doors flickered, and the arrow lit. It was moving. Behind me, his footsteps pounded closer. You can't leave, he roared, voice filling the corridor. You belong here. The elevator doors slid open with a tired sigh. Light spilled out, fluorescent and clean compared to everything else. The inside of the elevator looked normal, almost comforting. I stumbled in and slapped the ground floor button with the finger. The button lit. The doors started to close. And then he was there, charging down the corridor like a freight train, cleaver raised, face twisted with fury. Get back here, you little fish. He hurled the cleaver. Time slowed in the way it only does when death is inches away. The blade spun end over end, glinting in the elevator light, coming straight for me. I slammed the ground floor button again, like that mattered, and threw myself backward. The doors finished closing a split second before the cleaver hit. The blade struck the seam between the doors with a shriek of metal, sparking, and then clattered down the corridor outside as the elevator sealed shut. If the timing had been even a fraction different, my torso would have been open. I stood there shaking, pressed against the back wall, lungs gulping air like I'd been underwater. My throat was raw. My face was wet, sweat, tears, blood, I couldn't tell. The elevator shuddered and began to descend. The panel flickered. 2, 1, G. Normal numbers. Beautiful numbers. As the elevator dropped, I heard his voice faintly through the doors, muffled but still clear enough to make my skin crawl. Run, he called, almost cheerful again. Run fast. The elevator stopped at the ground level with a soft ding. The doors opened, and the world on the other side was so normal it almost broke me. Reception desk, lobby lights, the sad empty water feature, the security guard sitting there in a plastic chair, phone in hand, earbuds in, like he'd been watching videos and nothing else existed. He looked up, and his eyes went wide. "What the hell?" he started, standing up fast. "Sir, are you okay?" I must have looked insane. My shirt was smeared dark. My hands were black-red. My face was streaked with blood from my nose and splatter from him. My ankle was bleeding through my sock. My eyes probably looked like someone else's. "What happened to you?" the guard demanded, stepping forward. "You're a complete mess. And what's with all the blood?" My mouth opened. Nothing came out. Because what the fuck do you say? There's a butcher in a secret floor between 2 and 1, and he's been hanging our co-workers on hooks, and there's a memorial office with my name on it? He took another step toward me, reaching out like he wanted to grab my arm. I flinched so hard I nearly fell. "Don't," I croaked, and my voice sounded like sandpaper. The guard froze, confused. "Sir," I bolted. I didn't thank him. I didn't explain. I just ran out through the glass doors into the night air like the building itself was on fire. The cool outside air hit my face, and I almost collapsed from the shock of it. My lungs stuttered. My stomach twisted. I ran anyway, past the empty parking spots, past the sidewalk, past the first intersection. I didn't call a cab. I didn't stop to check if anyone followed. I didn't even look back because I was terrified I'd see the elevator doors open in the lobby behind me, and that huge shape stepping out like he belonged there too. My knee gave out twice, and I caught myself on a lamppost, panting, then forced my legs to move again. My phone was still in my hand, flashlight off now, screen smeared with blood. It buzzed once, weak vibration against my palm, but I ignored it. I didn't stop running until my apartment building came into view. When I finally got inside my place, I slammed the door and locked it. Then I locked the deadbolt. Then I shoved a chair under the handle, even though it didn't make sense because my door opened inward. Then I dragged my coffee table over like I was barricading against a zombie outbreak. My breathing sounded like a broken machine. I stumbled into my bedroom and shut the door and locked it too, even though it was just a shitty indoor lock, and pressed my back against it. The silence in my apartment felt wrong. Not peaceful, not safe, just waiting. I slid down to the floor and stared at my hands. They were shaking so hard my fingers blurred. I could see blood dried into the lines of my palms like ink. I went to the bathroom on legs that barely worked and turned on the sink. The water ran clear and cold. I washed my hands. The water turned pink, then red, then brownish like it couldn't decide what to be. I scrubbed until my skin burned. The smell didn't go away. I washed my face. My nose started bleeding again, slow and lazy. I stared at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize the expression there. Not fear, not shock, something emptier. Something like a person who'd seen behind the curtain and wished they hadn't. I stripped off my clothes and threw them in a trash bag and tied it shut like that would trap the stink inside. Then I sat on my bed, naked, shivering, listening. Every little sound in my apartment made my muscles tense. The fridge humming, pipes ticking, a car passing outside, and underneath it, in the quiet spaces between those normal noises, I kept hearing that scrape. Not loud, just faint, like metal dragging across tile, like a cleaver being pulled along a floor. I told myself it was in my head. Trauma, adrenaline, sleep deprivation, any explanation that didn't involve the impossible. But when I closed my eyes, I saw my desk with my name on it. I saw Shad's face on the floor. I saw the butcher's hand around my throat. I couldn't sleep. Every time I started to drift, I'd jerk awake, convinced something was standing in the corner of my room. The shadows in my room looked thicker than they should, like they had weight, like they leaned toward me when I wasn't looking directly at them. At some point, maybe an hour later, maybe 3. Time was a joke. I noticed the buzz I'd ignored earlier. A notification on my phone. One unread message. From a Wise. My thumb hovered over it, shaking. Because a wise had left before me. A wise had gone down in the elevator like a normal person. A wise should have been home, asleep, texting me memes about how we survived another deadline. I tapped the message. So you got away. For now. That was it. No emoji. No explanation. Just that. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up again. I tried calling him. It rang once, then went to voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. I sat there, staring at my phone, and the scraping sound in my apartment got a little louder. Like something out in the hallway had shifted its weight. Like something was smiling. And that's why I'm writing this. Because if a wise can text me that, if he knows, if he's part of it or trapped in it or whatever the hell that place turns people into, then I'm not safe. Not here. Not anywhere. And if you're still working there, if you're still staying late, still joking about all-nighters, still letting yourself be alone on that floor because the client just sent the data, don't. Leave while you can. Because the elevator doesn't always take you to the ground floor. And sometimes the little fishy doesn't get away at all.